My oldest daughter and I had a disagreement recently. I was very disappointed in her and expressed this to her, in my opinion, that she's a terrible mother. She believes I'm wrong to judge her, so I want some perspective. My daughter was married twice. Her first husband died when their children were tween, kindergartner, and preschooler. She met her second husband 18 months later and remarried after a year of dating and created a blended family with his daughter, who was a preschooler at the point of their marriage. His dad's death destroyed my oldest grandson. He was in therapy from the point of his dad's death, something my husband and I had to pressure our daughter to seek because she was more focused on moving forward. But our grandson was hardly eating or sleeping and had difficulty in school. My daughter thanked me later for giving her the push. When my grandson started therapy, he was asked to keep a diary to help him. It was something that took him several months to use more than once a month, but he did grow to use it a lot. This diary was something for his eyes only. Not even the therapist read it. They just discussed anything he wished to. My daughter had more children with her second husband, and things were fine. When my grandson decided to attend college locally, he asked if he could live with my husband and me, and we agreed. He moved in with us mid-June. About a month later, I noticed something was happening, but I had no idea what. My other two grandchildren from my daughter's first marriage told me that their mom and brother were fighting because their mom had stolen his therapy diary while they were visiting us, and she was angry about its contents. She was also mad at them because they defended their brother. I spoke to my grandson, who was both angry and sad. He told me his mom was never supposed to read it. I spoke to my daughter next. She ranted at me about how my grandson had written about her husband and other children, including her stepdaughter. She said he never wanted her to move on. He had wanted her to be alone forever. He didn't even love his much younger siblings, just the two from her marriage to his dad. She said she couldn't even look at him. I asked her if it was true she stole the diary. She was stunned that I would ask and told me I should focus more on the contents, especially when some of it was written before he moved in with me. I told her it was kept in a diary and never vocalized to any of them. She said that didn't matter, and I said it did. She told me I should be on her side and that he should be shunned for writing so many awful things. This is when I expressed my disappointment in her and called her a terrible mother. Am I the idiot? Edit. She still has the diary. I hear from two of my grandchildren that she continues to blame their brother and has openly discussed what he wrote. This means she hurt her stepdaughter and her youngest children with her actions too. Grandson did his best to still be kind to all the children, and his diary was his way of keeping others from being hurt. He's been ignoring any calls or texts from her. I hope he continues to do so, at least for now. Not the idiot. If the shoe fits, your daughter did a terrible thing. She stole her son's diary and then read through his private thoughts. And now she wants the entire family to shun him because she couldn't force him to drink the Kool-Aid of her perfect blended family? Pathetic. And now she's telling the younger kids the private thoughts of their half/stepbrother and creating a Grand Canyon divide between the three older sibs and the younger sibs. She's probably undone years of therapy right there and dares to be mad at the poor kid. None of her children would trust her going forward. OP, your daughter needs a wake-up call. What a mess. It sounds like she's determined to cause as much damage as she can. She made his recovery and journey through the grief of the loss of his father all about herself. And why is she calling him? It's clearly not to apologize, so she's just looking to yell at him some more. Your daughter should be ashamed of herself. At this point, she hurts anyone who will listen, just to look like, oh, poor me, mother. She's an attention seeker. A deal breaker for moving forward is if she doesn't at least give the diary back. But I doubt she'll do it, because it'll mean she loses her weapon against her son. Your daughter is a monster. My girlfriend, 27, and I, 28 female, currently live separately and are talking about moving in together, except we've hit a snag. She rents and pays roughly $3,000 in rent, utilities, and insurance. I own a house my brothers gave me as a graduation gift. My monthly utilities, insurance, and property tax is roughly $2,500 a month. She makes about $50,000 a year, while I make about $300,000. All of this cumulated in an argument we're currently in. I asked her to pay $1,250 a month when she moves in to cover the cost of living here. I asked her to pay $1,250 a month when she moved in to cover the cost of living here. I thought that was a reasonable request, since there will be 2 people living here, and that's half of my cost. She disagrees and thinks it's unreasonable, since I'll incur those costs whether or not she lives with me. I asked her what she thought was fair, and her first answer was that she shouldn't have to contribute anything, since the house was in my name and she didn't have ownership. This led to an argument until she relented and offered to pay based on our income. Since I make 6 times her salary, she said the only fair thing is for her to pay 1/6 of the cost, so roughly $400 a month. I thought this was unrealistic, but she argued that it's fair, since I don't even need her money because I don't have a mortgage and make so much more. I love her and never thought money would be an issue, but here we are. I don't know. If my girlfriend, who made $50K a year, wanted to move into my house that I own outright, and I made $300K a year, I likely wouldn't even make her pay. That said, I think paying based on income is exceptionally fair for a loved one, especially when your discretionary income ratio is even larger than 1:6. I do wonder how she can afford $3,000 in rent, but that's another thing. I'm going to go with you are the idiot. Rich people get given all the opportunities from 5 to 25, then think they're superior to poor people because of all that free university, free housing, and no responsibility that led them to securing high-paying jobs. My graduation present was a dinner at Olive Garden. OP got a darn house. OP, you are the idiot though, not for asking for a little help with the bills, but for making it 50-50 when you make 6 times what she does. Like, do you like this woman? You aren't interviewing a roommate. You're moving in with someone you supposedly love. And of course everyone deals with finances differently, but asking someone to pay half with that income disparity? Come on. I, 38 female, bought a 4-bedroom house in a semi-rural town when I was 23. It was a lovely big house, but the town was not fun for a 23-year-old. I always said I'd love it if I were 40 with kids, but it wasn't a great place for someone in their 20s. When I was 26, I put the house on the rental market and moved to London, where I lived for 2 years before moving to Australia. I found a lovely family to rent the house, a husband and wife in their mid to late 40s with 1 child, no pets, and respectable jobs. Rent was always paid on time. The estate agent always had good reports from inspection visits, and we never heard any complaints from neighbors. Fast forward 14 years later, they're still living there. I've been traveling the world full-time for some years, spent the time during the global issue in Australia, and then resumed traveling post-lockdowns. I'm now ready to return home, so I informed my estate agent that I want to break the contract and have them move out in 3 months, 2 months more notice than I'm obligated to give. The tenants were surprised to hear I was coming back and tried to ask if I was coming to live with my family. The agent brushed off the question and told them to vacate in 3 months and that they could help find alternative accommodation. Tenants texted me directly to ask the same question. I replied, "Ha ha, no husband or kids in tow, just ready to set roots again, looking forward to being home. I grew up 20 minutes away." I got a text calling me selfish for kicking them out of their home of nearly 15 years, wanting a big house all to myself, placing my needs of travel and enjoyment ahead of starting a family and getting married. They told me I should leave them to buy the house for what I bought it for. It's doubled in price since then, and go live in my other home. I replied, "You can dictate in a house that you own, not one that I own. Please have your things packed by X date, or I'll evict you and sue you for the cost." My friends are saying I'm kicking them out of their home, and I don't need such a big place, so I can rent or sell my student flat for a deposit for a house nearby. My rented home is 90% paid though, and I don't want to start again with a new mortgage. I want to live in my house. I've been fair to the tenants and reasonable in my request. Am I the idiot? You're not getting them out of their home. You're getting them out of your house. They signed a rental contract and must respect it. The reason you want your house back is entirely irrelevant and shouldn't enter into the equation. Even if you wanted to start a goat farm inside, you'd be within your rights. Obviously not the idiot. I disagree. I also bought a house and then had to move for work. I wanted to move back into the house in the future, so I put it on the rental market. I've also had the same tenants for going on, I think, 10 years now. Periodically, they ask me about my plans for the house because they don't want to run into this very scenario. I'd never give them just 3 months to move from a place they've lived in for over a decade. It would never be out of the blue. I'd definitely prepare them. The 3-month notice, even if perfectly legal, is incredibly rough on the family moving out. OP, you are the idiot. Agreed. She sounds entitled as heck. I bet that she's from a wealthy family, because I don't know any 23-year-olds in 2009 buying a rural 4-bedroom house and a student flat. Maybe OP doesn't have a legal obligation, but what about a human one? Congratulating herself on 3 months' notice for a good tenant is a bit self-indulgent. No wonder they reacted less than kindly. OP, it may not be their property, but it is their home. Given the current housing market, it would be difficult to find a 4-bed that meets their needs taken care of, and presumably a school for their kid. My husband and I have 3 kids, a male tween, a female tween, and a male pre-tween, and our last child is due in just a month. For the past year, my husband has been trying to convince me to sell my vehicle and get a new one, and I've always been against it. I have a minivan that fits 7 people, including the driver. I love the space. I love that I can pick up my friends and their children and still have extra seats. Plus, with the new baby coming, it just makes sense. But my husband hates my van. He says it's a death trap because of the mileage, 330K. However, despite the miles on it, it's still a perfect vehicle. Well, up until recently. About a month ago, it started overheating, and after multiple Google searches, I thought it was a cracked block because everything else seemed to be in working order. My husband, who knows vehicles, never looked at it because he wanted me to get rid of it anyway. I will admit that at the time, I was in agreement with him that I obviously needed a new vehicle. But here's the issue. My dad came down here a few days ago, and he looked at my vehicle and let me know that it's actually just a bad thermostat. He told me the price of a new thermostat and said he would change it for me. I told my husband later that night, and he immediately went out and looked at my vehicle saying, "Oh no, your dad's wrong, blah blah," and came back in a few minutes later and said, "Nope, it's definitely your head gasket," without even testing anything. I told him at this point that I trusted my dad's judgment. He's been a mechanic for 18 years, and I was just going to let him change it out for me, and that was it. But I came home today to a small 5-seater vehicle, and my husband smiling ear to ear, saying, "I bought this for you." He spent $4,500 on a 4Runner with 160K that won't even fit all the kids. I specifically told him I wanted another van. My van was gone. He used it for a trade-in. I told him I wouldn't drive it and to take the vehicle he wanted and shove it where the sun don't shine. He's wanted a 4Runner for easily 5 years. I've never liked them. He traded my vehicle against my very known wishes to please himself. He says I'm acting ungrateful, that this vehicle is safer, and that he can't believe I'm acting like this when he was just trying to do something nice for me. Not the idiot. Does he have a car? If he does, then take it in and trade it for a new 7-seater and dare him to make a fuss. After all, the family now has the 4Runner that he wanted. He knew you wouldn't want the car he got, so him accusing you of being ungrateful is straight up dishonest. Tell him that a gift that's really for him and is the opposite of what you've repeatedly stated that you need is not a gift at all. It's just manipulation. Safer for who? Who's getting strapped to the roof? The newborn or one of the older kids? Are you kidding me? You're about to have 4 children, and he just decides to take the only vehicle you have that can fit everyone and trade it in for something that only he wants? Screw him. He bought himself a vehicle, not one for you. Go buy the vehicle you want and don't tell him. He won't be able to say anything because he bought a vehicle without telling you. I'm a female teen. My mom and dad are divorced, and they're both 45. I'm their only child together, and it happened when I was relatively young because dad realized he was gay. They've always had a cordial relationship since. My dad has since remarried, as has my mom, so I have 2 stepdads. It can get confusing, so I'll call them Steve, 48, who's my dad's husband, and Mark, 47, who's my mom's husband. I've always split the time between both houses, as it's a flexible custody arrangement. I love both equally, but I've always preferred my dad's house because the room is bigger and because it's just me there. Mark has 2 sons who are always there and loud, making a lot of mess. Not in a malicious way, but they're just annoying teen boys. The house only has 4 bedrooms, so they already take up 2. But now my mom and Mark are taking in Mark's 2 nieces and a nephew because a sister died, and they want to stay with the family. This means that both Steve's sons will have to share a room, and my mom said it wasn't a big deal, but I'd have to share too. My mom and Mark said it'd only be until they find a bigger house, but I know they can't afford one, and I refused. All the kids are younger than me, and I don't want to share with one. Plus, the noise and mess would be multiplied, and I'd have no privacy. I got really annoyed because my mom was getting upset and said she was trying to make the best of a bad situation. I ended up calling my dad and asking if he could get me. I told him how I felt, and after talking about it more with Steve too, I decided I didn't want to live at my mom's anymore because one house with 6 kids isn't fair. I went back with Steve, who calmly told my mom what I wanted, and he helped me get all my belongings from there. I've been at his and my dad's since. My mom has been calling and texting a lot, as has Mark, who told me I'm breaking her heart because she isn't doing it maliciously. We're trying to help out a family who have nowhere else to go. I understand that, but they don't have the room, and I don't want to sacrifice my privacy. I'm annoyed because why are they taking in kids they have no room for? My dad is annoyed with my mom too, because I struggled a lot with Mark's sons moving in, and he thinks she's putting too much on me. Steve has been supportive and isn't bad-mouthing anyone, and he thinks I'm justified in my hurt and has been hugging me and stuff a lot since I can't stop crying. Am I the idiot? Your mother and her husband aren't doing it maliciously, but you aren't doing it maliciously either. While your mother's hurt by your decision, there's no reason for you to suffer if there's a viable alternative. You are not the idiot. Why do I feel that Mom and Mark were counting on OP to help with childcare? Because outside of that, moving to Dad and Steve's, at least for the short term, is ideal. OP will be sharing a room with all the little girls. Why wake up your aunt and uncle when your fun cousin is in your room? I guarantee your mom and stepdad were planning to have you help with childcare and household chores. You're doing the right thing in leaving the household. I highly recommend that you ask Mom to spend time alone with you during your visitation time with her. The best way for the 2 of you to foster a relationship is to spend time alone together. And if she can't or won't spend time alone with you, that's a choice she's making.